medicinal garden. Almost everything is a medicinal garden if you have certain ideas of what you would like in your life. Does that make sense? Like if you are trying to invite more peace, you plant flowers or plants that support that. If you want more vibrancy, you plant and invite plants that do that. So medicinal plants as a whole are there to support you and show you the way. And sometimes they just show up. So let me see, do you guys have any questions regarding what I...
There are a few questions. Do you want me to read them to you?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one from Beth is, do you have a favorite book for beginners?
Ooh, oh my gosh, I have 100 books. Okay. For beginners, it's not necessarily a book for beginners. I would say, I will tell you my favorite book of all when it comes to local medicines, because I'm a strong proponent of local. And so the answer is two parts. So I love this book, which I've gotten a long time ago, Wildflowers of Riverwood. And it was published by, I think, a master's or PhD student. And she cataloged and analyzed and researched all the plants that grow along the Credit River, which are similar to High Park, which are probably very similar to Rouge Valley and all these other places that are around us. And basically what she has in there is a catalog of plants that are growing wild that you can also grow in your backyard, or you'll encounter around in your garden, in your grass and around you, some of which are small, some of which are tall. And she tells you which are edible, which are invasive, which are native. And then the second part of the answer to your question is that I like it when people start with 2 or 3 plants max, right? So if you really want to have a medicinal garden and you're finding that, oh, well, my friend said I need these 10 herbs to grow. You don't. Maybe you just need chamomile. So research and look up everything you can learn about chamomile. And maybe you really like the smell of geraniums. So maybe grow 5 types of geranium, right? So first of all, look at something very basic and local. So try and find a book like this that's local or small, or maybe even use something like Richter's Herbs Catalog, because it's fairly insightful about all the plants in there. And then choose a maximum of 3 or 4 new plants to add into your garden this year, so that your garden is flourishing. You have time for these new plants and you can watch them grow. You can learn everything about them. Every week you can learn something new about that one plant. And then I invite you to harvest it at different stages, make different things out of it, make teas out of it, bake with it, put it into muffins, put it into bread, use it fresh in salads, put it in your water. So then you actually really get to know the medicine that you've invited into your life. Does that sound good?
That sounds like fabulous.
Okay.
Fabulous advice. That's great. And that's an awesome. Thank you.
Okay, good.
There is also a really good question from Catherine. Please provide some tips for those of us who only have a balcony. Thank you.
Okay. All right. This is one of my favorite balcony things. We grow everything that we can in pots in our backyard because we only have a deck. And as you can see, this mint here, I'm going to show you guys. This mint here, he was a bit dry and tired in January, but we started watering more and he just comes back. So you've got that. Also, you can get in the store herbs. This is basil I got for my pasta, but sometimes you can get it with appropriate roots, and you can even just grow locally store-bought herbs and keep them in water for a month or 2 before you pot them up into a pot. And then even some tropicals like this aloe will grow indoors all year long. So there's so many different plants that will actually just keep growing wherever you put them. And what happens when the light changes? Well, if the light changes, it's not optimal. The plant will either grow really slowly or stay small, or it will start shriveling up and it'll tell you that it needs more light. Or if you have a dark room and you want to keep it in that room, then you can get a grow light. You can get a grow light in just about every store nowadays, right? At IKEA, at a hardware store, at the renovation store. And for most things, you only need one grow light. So you can grow things indoors and in pots on your balcony. Now, I've tried growing everything on my balcony when I used to live in an apartment in a condo. And the biggest problem is wind, right? So if you are growing things on your balcony, start off small, like small, because the higher up you go, the more damage you get from wind. And you might have the most perfect beans, and one day there's a windstorm and they all break off. So start off small and try everything you want in pots and see how it goes. That's a great place to begin. But it also gets very hot, so make sure on balconies, especially if you're south, southwest, southeast, that you have good watering in place, or that you're present and diligent. You water every day when it's hot out, right? Is that a good, hopefully that's a good start anyway, right?
Well, and we'll have a bit of a wisdom break here too, because we have, well, you're bringing wisdom, but also others are bringing wisdom. So Opal is here, and she suggested that herbs, mint, cherry tomatoes, strawberries are some of the balcony plants I started with. And the other comment from Opal earlier is a nice one too. Plants grow where we need them. I learn from where they're growing, they're speaking to us.
Exactly. And then how are we going to hear them if we don't stop and listen?
Exactly. So, and Opal also has a question for you. Do you ever provide consultations for new growers?
Yes. Yes, and I guess now it's easier because with Zoom or with FaceTime, it's so much easier to do it anywhere, right? Because it's about a location thing. Because that you really need to be hands-on and see everything that's going on, because it's impossible to describe over the phone. So nowadays it's much easier to arrange that if you can't, because some places are far away. So if you can't arrange to be there, then as long as the person's in a walkthrough on site, so you can really look at everything, you can see the soil, you can see the lay of the land, you can see the slope, you can see the sun, like all of these things are so important, right? So yes, with technology, I can do that now. It's so much easier.
Well, I think there are a couple more balcony questions. I think you talked about providing some tips on growing herbs inside. Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, you can grow just about everything inside. What happens indoors is sometimes there's not enough intense sunlight, so you might not get as much robust growth, or you might not get flower production and seed production, but a lot of herbs will just be happily growing forever. The exception is some herbs require more humidity, and things like rosemary or even basil might be a bit sensitive and they get leggy and dry out. So some things are a little bit harder to learn, but they're fairly accessible. So you can keep trying until you get just the right windowsill or just the right corner in the kitchen, and you can keep growing almost everything in pots indoors.
And Robin has a chamomile related question. She
Yes.
said, I tried to grow chamomile in a raised bed, east facing balcony. How would you recommend doing that on a balcony? Plant never stood up, but it did flower. The tea I made with the dried flowers was bitter.
Ooh, and I need to know what kind of chamomile, actual Latin name, where it was from. Was it purchased from a friend or a store, or where is it from?
Robin, if you want to unmute yourself and just tell us that.
Sure, it was store bought at the garden store. It was German chamomile, but it's
Okay.
sort of like, it was very stringy. It sort of wound its way around itself, and I would try to prop it up.
Okay. Yeah, so it's, but did you buy it long and stringy, or was it short and compact when you first purchased it?
It was short and compact when I first purchased it.
Okay, so it didn't get enough heat, I would think, right? How many hours of sun do you get there?
It could get to about, it was a very rainy, it was actually quite a rainy summer.
Okay.
So I've decided to bring my beds under cover so that I can control the water.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a big part of it, that some herbs like chamomile, they really do enjoy heat, right? So unfortunately, once they get a little bit too much water, then a lot of plants don't like to sit in water, and then it changes their growth habit. So that was the demise of the plant. So I mean, what I say when people really love a plant, let's say you truly love chamomile, I would say if you can get 2 or 3 different plants in the garden center or grow from seed, like seeds are easier to get sometimes, and grow a bunch of them because they like to grow in groups and clumps, something like chamomile, and put them into 3 containers and put them in 3 different conditions, 3 different places. So then you can actually grow one indoors by a bright window, outside on one side of the patio or balcony, and another side raised or lower on the balcony, and to see like they're going to grow differently to see which one's the happiest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's fabulous to experiment like that.
Fun, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're going to pause for a bit. I'm going to do, oh, more people. I'm going to go to next set of slides. Like we're about, well, halfway there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I promise I'll break again in a few minutes. Let's just see.
Okay. Can we just do one quick one because it's about linden?
Sure. Yeah.
Linden flowers or the leaves for the tea?
Oh, the flowers are gorgeous. The flowers. You only harvest the flowers in like the top 2 parts, but you just need the blossoms, and you let them dry, laid out on a tray, and they really just bloom for 7 to 10 days in June. And you can smell them when they're in bloom. It's usually the second or third week of June. So mark it on your calendar so you can start harvesting local flowers, because there's thousands of them on trees. And in Toronto, Toronto has done a really good job in planting certain trees. Like you can get ginkgo biloba, you can get linden trees, we have maple blossoms, they're edible. Like there's a lot of trees we have, mountain ash, that produce really wonderful medicines, and they're just growing out in the wild in our corridors. So you just put them in your calendar every month of what to look for. And the caveat here is to stay away from industrial zones, right? So if there's a lot of factories or even like large mass retail, those kinds of things where there's a lot of traffic, maybe don't go to tree areas like that. But whenever there's a big green corridor and you find a lot of trees that are in bloom with edible blooms, you can try a handful there and see how you like it. Save them for teas or desserts or for cooking. Okay.
And I'll keep the other questions for a bit later.
Yeah, after, yeah. Let's go
Yeah.
through a couple more. Where were we? Okay, good. So this, I offered the handout, like the PDF for you guys to use, I don't know, somewhere. You can just email me if we don't have it online somewhere, and I can send you the link from Google Docs so you can use this PDF. But this is a basic summary of what I love. Like easy, anybody that you know that wants to grow and join you in gardening, dill, yarrow, comfrey, borage, calendula. Calendula, everybody can grow calendula. It's a bright orange ray of sunshine, medicinal, good for your skin, and just blooms all summer long. Parsley, lemon balm, anise, hyssop, so easy to grow, echinacea. So I have these groups here. Maybe you can take a screen grab, or what I do is I take a screenshot with my phone sometimes and pick 2 or 3 from here and add them to your existing garden or a couple of pots. All of these things you can grow in pots also. So you can grow these things anywhere. Some need half sun, most need full sun, and just see what happens. Explore. And a lot of these are really aromatic, so they're wonderful as teas or in cooking. I'm so obsessed with food today. I don't know, I'm just gonna keep talking about food and just cooking. Let's just put everything in food and make it a medicinal. Okay, so here's a little reminder. There's so many things that grow wild, and things like thistles. There's tons of different thistles that we can actually eat and use for medicine, use for teas, use for extracts, but they grow really well on their own in the wild. So don't put these in your garden unless your garden's like 10 acres, because then they'll just already be in your garden. So I would avoid nettle, burdock, thistle, plantain, and mullein. I would avoid planting it unless you can't find it around for miles, because usually you can find it in your neighbor's yard or your next door neighbor's yard or in the parkland down the street. So those are easy to find, and they spread really, really well. They have thousands of seeds. They spread by runners, and it's hard to get rid of them. And if they show up in your garden and you like them, like mullein and plantain live in my garden, I just leave them there. But don't get new ones. Don't add them. So here's a little guide that I put together for how to select your plants. Select the things you love. So if you don't already have dandelion in your garden and you love dandelion, or you like to support your liver, or you like the bitter tea, or you like a bitter tonic, put some dandelion, let the dandelion grow in your lawn, and voila. Oh, that was my pause. So that was a little bit later. And then remind me if you can, the dandelion is a very good example of how to harvest. So for example, we can go over this again at the end, when to harvest your homegrown medicinals, herbs, and supporting flowers and plants. In the spring, we go for the fresh shoots. In the springtime, we harvest the fresh shoots, usually, because that's where all the energy is. In the summer, we go for the flowers and the leaves, because that's where all the energy is. And in the fall, we tend to go into the roots and harvest the roots, or even the seeds for food, right? For flowers, or for adding into our mixes. So we follow the natural cycle of the earth and the seasons. Okay, so we want to plan out your space. We talked about balconies and indoor gardening, outdoor gardening. You can grow just about anything anywhere you like. It just might grow slower, or it might not fruit. And here's a lovely example. This is naturalized slope and garden at Colonel Samuel Smith Park at the Ken Cox Community Center. Now it's hard to see. Most people will just see just weeds, but there's about 20 medicinal plants in here. And it's incredible that they're all just living together. So this is what it also means about permaculture, where you can have a little area in your garden where you just let everything grow, different sizes, and maybe thin out some things if they're taking over. But then what happens is that the little gaps are filled in by unique plants or different pioneer plants. So in here we have tick seed, false chamomile right here, ironweed, chicory, hawkweed, sow thistle, canna thistle, and so much more. And most of these can be used as bitters or teas, or harvested as like a millet or clover over here, for poultices, or to add into, again, food, like different baked goods, right? Or even into stews. It's amazing how many leaves and roots and seeds you can use in stews. So growing again, the recommendation is pick 2 or 3 plants and learn all about them so you can grow them well. And I grow everything together. So I'm a smorgasbord kind of gardener. So I have my creeping lemon thyme with my dianthus, and with some chickweed and some other wild plants. And I have lettuce back here. And then I have my petunias with my dill, and I have squash back here. I really don't care. I plant everything together, and so can you. So the way a medicinal plant is medicinal is that it supports you. So it's there for you. So you put it wherever it works for you. And I put these things in here because all of these are online. So there's no need for us to go through the different plants. Just pick one that you love and start researching it. So harvesting. Remember what I said about the dandelion? That's pretty important. Got a few more minutes. One of the first things you want to do is learn about your plant. For example, I love goldenrod. I love yarrow. I love mullein. I love goldenrod. So I do everything with goldenrod. And this is the way you would harvest and pick up your goldenrod in September and October, and hang it upside down in a clean, dry space and preserve it for tea. Collect the flowers. So that's what you can do with a lot of different herbals that you're growing in your garden. Storing. Most things are best if they're stored, I don't know if you guys can see me, I'll show you after, in clean, dry jars, glassware, if possible, or some things in a freezer with olive oil, depending on what you're making. And then this also goes into using and selecting, how-to guide. So in here I have, I'm going to read this off so we can go over who has questions about the different parts, but this is a summary of all the different ways that one plant can be herbal, a helper, and a herbal healer. Oh my gosh, it's hard to say. Herbal medicinal plant that grows in your garden. You can make it into a poultice, like we saw with the plantain. Herbal oils, calendula, arnica, borage, comfrey. There's so many plants you can make into herbal oils. Tinctures, extracts, essential oils, teas, decoctions, bath teas for soothing the skin in the bath. Food, nutrients, and hydrosols. I'm going to go to next. Oh boy. Okay. So here's a summary of the way I refer to these. And again, you can have this in your handouts. You can refer to it later if you wanted to practice one of these later on, because we have a short time. So it's not an all day thing. I can't go into everything, but here's a quick reference guide. Poultice on the go. If I scratch myself on a hike and I found some plantain, I would chew it up, smash it up in my mouth and stick it on my hand, and it becomes an on-the-go poultice. It helps support the scratches. Herbal oils are more for long-term, supporting your skin, supporting external well-being, and they take time. Tinctures, specific, concentrated, usually based on alcohol, and since they're very concentrated, you only use a little bit or use them for acute conditions. Extracts, essential oils that are very specific and concentrated. Teas you can use in a variety of ways, so that's a great way to begin if you're a beginner gardener. Decoctions, very similar, it's just different boiling times. So there's a difference between an infusion and a decoction, and decoction's usually longer. Usually you have a lot of roots or a variety of materials, and you're steeping them to extract all the medicinal power out of them. So it's a different way of preparing herbs than teas. Bath teas, you can just throw the either an infusion or create a hot water infusion for the bath and add it into your bath water. Food nutrients, again, that's storage, collecting seeds, roots, leaves, and utilizing them in the kitchen. You can use those anytime. And hydrosols, it's a different type of extraction for getting the aromatics from the plants. That's another reference guide for all the things that you can find online. Great, easy way to refer to what you like to see in your garden and how you would like to use it. So then you can just do a garden for anxiety, for example, and put all of these in your garden, maybe 3 plants each year. Okay, remember elderflowers too. Elderflowers in June, linden flowers in June. A lot of stuff happening coming up soon. And then let's see if we have. Okay, tea leaves anytime easy. Aromatic oils require experience. Fresh oils and herbs you can do anytime. Now I would recommend you can try that at home with a double boiler or a slow cooker to create your own herbal oil. That's fairly easy to do. And how to create aromatic space. This is a good place to pause. We're almost done, perfect. So decide on your favorite plant. Let's say you want to work with dandelion and mullein, or you want to work with raspberry leaf. And then you decide on how you want to use it, where you want to use it. If you want to use it for your skin, if you want to use it as an enhancer, a mood enhancer, do you want to use it in your creative space? How is it going to become a healing garden? How is it going to become a healing plant in your life? So again, pick 1 or 2 things at the most and look at, okay, am I going to use this as a food or an herb? Or am I going to fold it into an oil or an essential oil blend? Or am I going to use it for decor? So I have this list here to let you know that there's so many different ways to use one medicinal. And here's a reference guide for making a tincture. And this is from a medicinal garden in one of the botanical societies. It's a feverfew. So there's so many things that look like daisies. Lovely. Good. Oh, we're going to get you in here. Okay, and then I think we're almost done. Herbal oil summary. So this is in your handout also in the PDF if you download it. There's hundreds of formulas on how to make it, but this is easy for the slow cooker. So anybody can make an herbal oil from calendula flowers or from dandelion or from lavender. You can make your own herbal oil starting as soon as you see the flowers, which is fantastic. Now it's your turn to go treasure hunting. Oh, this is a good pause. Perfect. So let's do 5 minutes